beginning foundation, your goal setting is very near-term focused. When you're intermediate, you start to think about what's coming up in the medium term. So say within the next year or so. And then as Jen shared, you're starting to also think about long-term. And our most long-term goal is often retirement, but it can also be things like paying your mortgage down or taking a 1-year sabbatical, like just starting to look at some of the goals that are beyond the day-to-day. And, that's just like an important, like that's a great, exciting part of being in this planning stage. What was the experience like for you guys?
I think it was exciting because I could think about the future. I could think about planning and I could think ahead, and it felt realistic rather than like some pie in the sky, oh, someday kind of thing, right? And I think that was the hugest shift for me, was having everything. I don't know that I set goals when I was foundation builder, and we didn't talk about that when we talked about that level, but I think it's because I didn't even know what my goal would be, right? I like to still have money at the end of the month, I guess would have been my goal, right? And so then once I got to that next level, I could actually set goals that felt realistic. Okay, I want to have this debt paid to this level by this time. I want to be able to have this amount of money in savings by this time. I want to be able to buy a plane ticket for this trip without using my credit card. Like those types of things were what I was working toward. And they weren't like super long term or anything. I also upped my percentage contribution to my 401k plan because that felt like I had a little bit more money that I could contribute to that. And I understood the importance of that at this level. So I think that's what it was. It just felt kind of empowering to be able to think forward that way and realize that those goals were realistic.
Same. I really was excited because when I got to the planning stage, I started talking to people about money finally. It wasn't this like hidden secret within me. And what I learned is that other people like to talk about money and are doing some things you never even thought of, right? And so, like you said, Marilee, like you can start to look at, we talked about good versus bad debt in one of the past episodes. You can start to look at debt to buy a property, to be a rental home, or to live in yourself as being maybe a good thing for you at this planning stage because you have some long-term goals, right? And that's a long-term, buying real estate, a long-term investment. And so I really got excited and motivated. I had confidence that I could do it because I had been tracking my numbers. I had been budgeting. And I had that confidence built because others around me were doing it. And they were just like me. They were teachers like me. They were people who also wanted to get together after school. We started a little money club. And that's really where it began for me, with this small group of teachers talking about money, exactly what this podcast is. So many years later, it's funny to think about, but it normalized it, right? Going from not talking about it with anybody, maybe not even my spouse enough, to talking about it with a group of people who I had to build trust with, because it can be very scary, was a huge, huge important piece for me. It made me want to learn more so I can better contribute to those conversations. It made me want to question more and open my mind to more possibilities. And it made me want to plan for my future. And that's huge because then my spending decisions weren't near as hard because I could easily pass something up because I wanted to travel instead, because I wanted to invest instead, because I wanted to get a property instead. So that was a huge transformational place for me. I loved it.
I found that too, that the more that I connected with my finances, the more I learned about myself. And when I had those really specific values, like when I really understood what I loved to spend money on and what wasn't meaningful, that made the process so much easier. And I actually enjoyed looking at my money. So if I didn't have a look at where I stood each week, it would be like something was missing in my life. So it was like, it was exciting, it was enjoyable, and that was the biggest transformation. And what I see with clients too is at this intermediate stage, they're just more comfortable. Like if they have a goal, they know how to work out the math on what that looks like to make that goal happen. And that's a really, really important skill. The other thing they learn is how to brainstorm. So if they have a goal, they can start to think about what the pros are, what the cons are for a decision that they're facing, and what kind of action steps that they need to take. And they have a routine or a ritual that they do on a regular basis to look at their finances. And, they're able to kind of incorporate more decision making because they've boosted their confidence and they've actually seen some results with the work that they're doing around their money.
Yeah, and my learning changed a bit. I was very much consuming at the foundational stage, right? And at the planner stage, I started creating like what I want to do. And so an example of that is just going from watching somebody on YouTube talk about getting a mortgage and turning it into a short-term rental, the property into a short-term rental, to going on NerdWallet and using a mortgage calculator. Next to that, using an investment calculator. Okay, does it make sense for me to go try to do real estate? Does it make sense for me to try to do investing in the stock market first, or one or the other, right? So my learning started to get more hands-on and kind of, I guess, taking what I was learning and applying it possibly to me. Like you said, Marilee, like the brainstorming leveled up. I could imagine, because I was hearing about different things from different people as well as my own learning. And then I could try it out digitally, right? Or what are people saying are the pros of this? What are people saying are the cons of this? What might work for me? So I was able to like level up that learning in that application way.
I think that's good. And I think I just want to also reiterate. I feel like I'm always the like, bring it back down just in case people are overwhelmed person, because that's me. If what Sybil is talking about is exciting and you're like, yes, I am into that, like, let me take that next step, that is awesome. Do it. If you're like, whoa, I feel like I just arrived on this foundational level and like buying a second property has never occurred to me and that is giving me a panic attack, that is okay, right? If you're at this level and you're like, look at me, I'm starting to learn, and you start to look into your employer's 401k plan and look at your investment options and like increase your percentage and make a choice of the funds that they've offered you, that is perfect. If you, Marilee talked about a high interest savings account, if you are like, let me open one of those and let me start putting some money in there so that I'm building with a higher interest rate, that is perfectly fine. This is a spectrum, right? This level is not just all right here. It's like this. So if you're right here and you just landed on this level, that is a perfect place to be. Also, if you're just listening, I'm putting my hands really far apart. And if you just got to the bottom platform of, planning, that's fine. If you're at the top and you're getting ready to jump to the third level, then that's okay too. But I don't want anyone to feel overwhelmed by what we're talking about. The whole point here is to have these conversations so that you can learn and hear and understand what other people's thought processes are and pick and choose what works for you, what makes sense to you, and what resonates with you. There was a long time I never thought we would own rental property. Now we own one. So, that I had to get to that stage in my life when that made sense for me. So also, embarrassingly enough, we have a lot of money invested in a lot of different ways. We just opened a high yield savings account like a month ago. So we're all over the place, all of us, and that is absolutely okay.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, Jen. I was going to say, like, I've had an emergency fund savings for a while now, but just recently put it into a high yield savings account. That's the thing is like about money. and about the climate of money is that we're all going to do different things in different orders and not do some and others will do some. And it might not be for 5 years from now where that decision makes sense. And in 5 years from now, you might not want your money in a high yield savings account because they might be super low again, right? So absolutely. I love that.
And if you want to know, if you're like, what's a high yield savings account? Just Google it. They're super easy to find. They're everywhere. You can find them without any fees and you can set them up online in honestly under 10 minutes. So if you're curious what we're talking about, just Google it and tons of information will pop right up for you because I think they're kind of popular right now. A lot of people are putting their money in them because the interest rate is good.
Exactly. Yeah. So thank you for listening. Remember, we'd love to hear from you. Send your thoughts, send your questions. Be sure to subscribe and like our podcast so you don't miss any episodes. And we look forward to chatting with you next time.